All right, welcome everybody to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. For over a decade now, I have been interviewing someone amazing every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific. Sometimes it's a top producing loan officer. Sometimes it's an author like Simon Sinek, Jocko Willink, Darren Hardy. And guys, sometimes it's a top realtor. And today I've got the gift of having two amazing local professionals. We have one of the top, I don't want to call him a realtor, although he is a realtor, but he leads a real estate platform. And we're going to talk about real estate as a platform. Jason Mitchell, welcome to the call, Jason.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody.
So I've interviewed Jason one time before. I'll put a link to that interview down below. I think this one's going to cover a lot of what we covered in that one, so it might be redundant. We also have a top mortgage originator, Brian Morley, coming to us out of Columbia, Maryland. What's up, Brian?
Dave, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. So you and I are going to be interviewing Brian at about the 30 to 40 minute mark. I'm going to have you come in and teach some mortgage strategies that would be valuable to a top realtor. But there'll be a couple different windows where I'd love to have you ask Jason questions and just make sure we make this valuable for local mortgage professionals. You cool with that?
Perfect. Sounds great.
Hey, just so folks know, guys, this is a top leader. I mean, he closed over 100 million last year. What kind of production, Brian, are you doing in today's market, just so we get a feel for your the day in the life of Brian and his team?
Just went over 100 million year to date. Run rate's pretty good to the end of the year. Probably will run, I don't know, maybe 175, 180 for the year.
Congratulations, dude. So, guys, tremendous production. He's also just a great leader for Fulton Bank, where we rolled out Mortgage Coach and, getting great adoption because of Brian's leadership skills. So Jason, let's bring it to you. I want to spend 5-10 minutes and break down your real estate platform. One, could you tell us what kind of volume you're doing? And then two, describe how you're doing all this volume and how your platform works.
Sure. So this year, I think we're at, I want to say around 600 million closed. We should hit roughly 1.1 to 1.2 billion. That equates to about 3,300 transactions or so. My model is simple. We are a B2B business. And so we service national lenders as well as national networks alike and become their preferred boots on the ground for any referrals and any clients that they need assistance with real estate in the field. And so we built this niche out years ago and created a tech stack behind it, as well as great training and processes. We operate in 15 states, 31 submarkets, and all of our agents work on the same. They work with the same tech, the same training. We run everything through corporate here in Scottsdale. And, we just have a little army of agents in these little submarkets that, they certainly have accountability with what they're doing, because we have to make sure that to our partners, we're doing the best that we can. And it works. And so we give a lot of currency. Our average agent last year added 33 closings to their book of business from our team generated side. About 90% of our business comes from our partnerships. And so my job is to go out and create new partnerships, make sure with our current partners that we continue to help and support them. I do a lot of consulting for different groups as well. And so right now we're opening Minneapolis, Charlotte, Richmond, and Denver. So we'll add those 4, and then we'll add 3 more markets before the end of the year. And we'll go into 2021 with, it appears to be at least 19 states and 38 submarkets.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's a very innovative model. I think there's a lot that can be learned from this. Coming out of my last interview with Jason, what I thought would be the best thing that we could learn is how to improve conversion, whether it's a realtor referring a lender or a lender referring a realtor to a family. How can we make that so 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, it equals 4, it equals 5, in terms of, one, conversion. We help each other improve conversion together. We help improve referrals together. And most importantly, we help that family multiply their wealth. Like, because that family works with this referral between a lender and a realtor, they build wealth with real estate more effectively too. And Brian, that'll be part of your job to kind of show a couple strategies on how they can partner in a little bit. So guys, if you have questions about this model, put it down below. But so let's walk through, and I know some of the partners and the lenders that refer to you are Quicken, they're Zillow, they're New American, lenders or Veterans United. I mean, big national consumer direct platforms, they get a lead and now they say, oh, you need a realtor to work with? Or even if they don't say it, they like refer them to you. So walk us through some of the best practices that improve conversion.
Well, the first strategy is understanding why we're doing this, and that's trusted agent in the field, because it's no secret, especially nowadays, if a lender is not connecting their clients with a trusted real estate partner, when that client finds their own realtor, there's a large opportunity that you're going to get bifurcated. And the numbers are pretty staggering, in fact, on how many times that happens, because what the real estate agent says is, I'm sure that lender is good, but you should talk to my guy. At least you're having an almost 100% opportunity that you're now going to get shopped. And so what the strategy behind working with some of our, big lending partners, and all of our lending partners actually, is we want to make sure that when we take a pre-qualification, that we're putting in the hands of somebody that is trusted and somebody that we know will fight for us should they start shopping, should they, and not look elsewhere, that they're going to have a seamless experience with this lending partner, with the LO in particular. And so we build that trust and confidence from the very get-go with our best practices and training. And so it's critical that my agents understand, which is why our training platform is where it is and why it's so critical, that they understand the importance of protecting that loan officer and protecting that lending source. And so the way that the process works is twofold. One, we work with large national lenders like the Rocket Mortgages of the world, the Veterans United of the world, and New Americans and Zillow, and it goes on, where they will send us a client, and we will then, depending on the marketplace, we will ingest the referral, distribute it all through technology with awareness around the distribution. And then at that time, once we start working with the consumer, we're building our trust and confidence, and when it closes, we pay referral fees out. And then we also have relationships with large institutions, your Axos banks, Cardinal Financial. I mean, there's a lot of partners at this point, so I'm leaving people out, but where we offer our rewards. And so when we find ourselves in a situation to where, so for example, a few years ago, I had this concept that my agents were so accustomed to paying referral fees on all of the team-generated files that we brought in, and we're bringing in roughly about 1,600 referrals a month right now. And so we had this concept that our agents are so accustomed to paying referral fees on every transaction. What if we instituted a rewards program for those lenders that didn't have a network, that didn't have a third-party distribution platform, because that's what most of them do, especially your bigger ones. So I went out and I met, my first client on there was Axos Bank, and I met with the vice president of consumer direct lending, and I said, look, what if we instituted something to where we gave our referral fee directly to the consumer? And for the local lenders, and we do this now with quite a bit of partners, and a lot of them are, your Brian Morleys of the world that do 100, 150 plus million, that want trusted partners in the field, but we institute our rewards platform. Because what we find is that when you institute trusted agent professional, along with a stipend to the consumer where they win and the monetary value is significant, it almost takes the shopping completely out of the picture because of the rewards that they receive. And so we institute our real estate rewards program to lenders that want to partner with us that necessarily aren't doing, your 50 billion a year in business and have, a corporate overlay, that have autonomy to pick and choose what they want to run with. And so it worked, and it works with every one of them. Because the reward's so significant, and the way that we do our introductions and everything to the consumer, it's very seamless. We institute reward certificates, and we just make sure that not only are we putting a trusted real estate agent on your file that understands that this file by all costs needs to close with you, now we're giving them a reward in order, by doing so. And so we run these two different models, and it just depends on the partnership. So what we do is we build a custom wireframe with every partner that we bring on board. We have a strategy session. And now, again, with our bigger ones, it's far more significant than that. But we customize and tailor a solution around that lender's workflow. And so a lot of times we're integrating with the LOS system, so it's automatic. It's a click of a button. Sometimes we just simply provide links that can be a form fill, that there's a new client here that we just pitched. Sometimes we're actually even calling the mortgage application leads. Sometimes we're even calling them on behalf of lenders and utilizing our call center, pitching the rewards program, and depending on who purchases those leads, we then kick it back to them on a live call. So we do this in a variety of ways at this point, and we have it down. So, you know, that is another platform with the consumer rewards program that we run too.
So guys, I think at this point, you should understand the platform. If you don't understand the model and the platform, put a question down below. This will be in our YouTube channel, so you can rewatch it. Brian, I'm going to bring you in with a question in just a second, so be thoughtful. In just a minute, you have a question. But my first question before Brian is, how valuable, how important is the handoff? Like, how important is the handoff between the referral partners to get right and optimize conversion? Did you hear that?
I think he might be froze.
I'm back. I don't know if my internet, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I heard the question. I think Brian's computer's froze.
Okay, so
Oh, there he is.
Okay, how important is the handoff? Jason, did you hear that?
Oh, to me? Yeah, I mean, it's as far as the handoff goes, it's critical because that has to be a seamless process. And so part of our best practices is we want the loan officer to be able to have a program to pitch that no one else has. And that's the real estate reward side. But even on the network side, even when it has to do with not necessarily enticing the consumer with a huge reward, it's really about the experience. The reward comes secondary. So that experience of knowing, I'm going to get you with a trusted partner. We work with them all the time. You're going to love working with this group. And then when we receive that referral, we're saying the same thing about them. And so we're creating that harmony right from the very beginning to have a peace of mind to the consumer that I'm in the right place right now. These guys are both teeing each other up, and it makes me feel comfortable as a consumer. So that handoff is critical. The handoff also has to come, quickly. We want to make sure that on the same day, within hours, we're creating that process together so the consumer knows how important they are.
Ryan, any questions you have so far?
Yeah, Jason, I'm just curious, you see a lot of local partnerships between mortgage lenders and realtors. And I would imagine that, your partnerships are not necessarily, down the street from each other. What are some of the best practices that people are employing when you're not at the elbow of each other? And how are they creating that synergy, and how are they creating that good relationship to be working on the same team, taking the consumer from start to finish?
Yeah, listen, and I guess to kind of separate your question, we're talking consumer direct space versus retail space in a sense, because the retail space in our model is a little challenging because those belly to belly relationships become critical. And for us, we thrive more in a consumer direct environment. Not to say we don't do some retail with lenders, we do, but the concept of distributed retail is really more about, we want to make sure that I'm going to do my part to hand you off to our clients. We want to create a relationship where you're creating that exchange model and the arbitrage, and we're winning together as Brian Morley and his army of agents in his local market, constant reciprocation, going back and forth, creating that. That's unfortunately a model that we're not, I don't want to say we don't understand it, but it's tough because we have commitments, and the arbitrage for us is very challenging in that retail space, just simply based on the fact that we're servicing we're servicing our bigger clients that are providing hundreds and hundreds of opportunities a month. And we have to make sure that our carve-outs are consistent with our partnerships. To me, the retail side in creating that relationship with agent and and loan officer are critical. That's how I started my career. I had a couple lenders in town, and we would reciprocate, and we do all those great things. The problem is that it's very challenging, and if majority of lenders are on this call, and Brian, you can attest, what happens is there comes a place to where lenders say, well, wait a minute, I'm giving you significantly more than you're giving me, unless you're working with a high-powered agent and an agent that's running a team that's preaching that message of culture, of give back, because agents just simply don't do the amount of self-gen business that they're telling you that they do and or that they are really doing. And even when they do, a lot of times, whether it's cash or they have to use a specialty program, it's challenging. Like a buyer is a buyer, but a lending program is a lending program tailored to what a consumer can qualify for. So it's very challenging for agents to live up to their end of the bargain in exchange back to create that harmony of relationship in the retail space. Whereas a lender, a buyer is a buyer, or a seller is a seller. And so I find a lot of struggles with lenders trying to understand that it's significantly more different for an agent to do what you may think that whether what they say they're going to do or the commitments at what they put in place, because it's harder on the real estate end to do so. That doesn't mean anything though in terms of the importance of the connection and the relationship, because when you're on a local level, the closing ratios will be higher. You have a local lending professional and a local real estate professional that, in the absence of COVID, that can meet face to face. And so we find that there are stronger relationships in the local lender space. And we find that seamlessness and the experience should be stronger and closing ratios are higher if you have a trusted real estate professional in your pool of distribution and who you trust. The question is, how do you manage that? Because it's a constant influx, right? And then you're juggling who's more important, and then typically you're not the only lender either. And so it's just always making sure you're on the same page, but it is critical to have those relationships, no doubt.
So Jason, just to follow up on that, what is, and I think you started alluding to it in a little at the end there, what has COVID done for your model, and how has that affected what the market looks like for you guys?
Yeah, well, to us, fortunately, we had a record month last month. I think we did 144 million in new files, new escrows last month. I think it's because consumers understand that this is a short window for interest rates, and that, we've seen so many markets that was in such high demand because we specialize in a lot of conventional stuff, your typical purchase price. We don't have a niche in luxury. It's really, we service our lending partners. So it's really a lot of conventional. And in those markets, people were getting pushed around for so long and getting beat out by multiple offers and cash offers that I think it opened an opportunity for people that were getting pushed around to say, this is my opportunity to go buy a home. And also interest rates are just so rock bottom that, people realize regardless of what's going on, I need a roof over my head. And so truthfully, the only markets that we struggled in were the markets that simply weren't open for business. And that was New York, Detroit, and New Jersey for a while. And now they're all open back up. But the markets that we could produce and do business in, we were having record months. And so for us, the concept has changed to where we're doing more virtuals, we're doing more FaceTimes. It's not the buy side to me that's struggling right now. It's getting into properties. It's sellers that don't want to let people into the property or are being very particular about things and making it increasingly more difficult to get into a home. But all in all, I mean, the housing market has been we all know this. I mean, it's been unbelievably resilient during these times. And so, for us, it hasn't affected our numbers. It's affected the way that we go about business. But in terms of opportunity and buyers out there, no, it's been just fine.
How many families, you mentioned 130 some odd million. What's an estimate to the number of families served last month?
367 last month.
So an incredible amount of leads, an incredible amount of transactions. What you mentioned that some things have changed. What are let's get tactical. What has changed, and what are the most important things that you do that drive conversion and success?
Well, the first thing is understanding that when you're in a market like this, buyers can have the expectation that this is my opportunity to potentially steal a home, or this is my opportunity to now get a better price. it's important that we relay these informations in terms of training and culture to our agents, that on that initial call, we bring up the environment and set the expectation that it is not what some people think. In fact, it's still uber competitive out there. And when we get, and a lot of people have looked at this as an opportunity. And so we set the expectation that you cannot have the expectation that, you know, there's all these low bids out there and that all of a sudden you can go out and take 10% off the price of a home. It doesn't exist. In fact, you would argue that, and we always put it to the consumer too, you know, and we relate it to interest rates right now. You know, I know you've seen Mr. Jones where rates are, it's crazy. It's led to just this unbelievable whirlwind of buyers in the market. So when we find that right home, we have to execute right away on putting an offer in, because there's multiple offers on these great properties. And so we try to crush the COVID thing and everything going on in the environment, which may appear as though the optics, at least, that it's creating an opportunity on the buy side for consumers. It's not. And so we want to make sure that before we start spinning our wheels showing properties to people that have an expectation of stealing a home, or that this is an environment that they could get something that they once couldn't, on that initial call, we're setting the right expectations and foundation right up front about the environment right now.
Got it. Any other questions, Brian?
No, that's it. It's a very interesting model.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Brian, about 10 minutes, I'm going to have you talk about conversion. I'm going to have you go through what you're doing and how you're doing it. So guys, I wrote probably, I think it's the most read, shared, and studied article on LinkedIn I've ever done. By the way, this one on Quicken Loans IPO means game time is trending big time. We've got over 1,000 people, 2,000 over the past couple days. Check it out. But this one has been consumed over 8,000 times. And if you read this, I go through conversion, like how does a referral-based local loan officer optimize conversion? And I lay out 4 principles. And then within those 4 principles, I lay out 13 core strategies. And you'll look at the first couple, you know, educating your realtor, training your realtor. What Jason just talked about, that's the ingestion. And you can tell that there's a lot of thought going on around how are we going to make the handoff? How are we going to make this connection? And what's the speed to lead? And I'm sure that Jason crushes it when it comes to speed to lead. And then you heard him talk about part of the promise. Like I teach loan officers, make this client for life promise to a family. And Todd Duncan's script last week was pure money. Also, Tim Brahim has a really good script with that. But there's a promise that's different. But guys, there's other tactics. There's other things that you're doing that optimize conversion. So Jason, think of like, and I may be putting you on the spot too much, like if there are 1 or 2 principles and 3 or 4 strategies that fuel your model, you know, what comes to mind? What are the principles that fuel your conversion strategy, and what are the actual tactics and strategies?
Sure. Well, speed to lead is very important, but it's speed to lead with the right messaging too. And so that cross awareness of where we received your information from, and not just reaching out and saying, hey, I'm Jason and I saw that you're interested in purchasing a home and I'm going to be the agent to help you. We have to create that awareness of where we received the information from. And so immediately the minute we receive a referral, and this is critical to us because we have to make sure, we have a lot of competition out there. So we have to make sure we're constantly upping our game when it comes to the tech behind what we're doing. Because although it sounds like, hey, I'm just going to send you a referral, give them a call, it doesn't work like that. And so for us, the speed to lead, the minute we receive a referral, we send an SMS and then an MMS that talks about both the lender or our partner, at least on the file, and then us, along with some content and a video that they can watch. And it's creating that like sense of, okay, I'm at the right place here. And then our agent will receive simultaneously that you have a new referral. This is the client's name. This is the partnership. This is any incentive that comes with it. This is the best practice link to close these referrals if they want to cross-reference. And so we're creating everything up front. And so that speed to lead is critical. The other thing that's super important is the training. I mean, we have a lot of states and submarkets, but we don't have a lot of agents because we lead with deal flow. And so my model is not an agent recruitment model where we add so many agents. Wherever we go, we just try to recruit. We don't have a model like that. Our model is, depending on the marketplace and depending on deal flow, will be dependent upon how many agents that we have. Because I have a commitment to the agents that as long as you work with me and you make sure that you're following our protocols and our processes, we're going to give you more at-bats and opportunity than anybody. And so I have to stay true to that. So we just keep depending on the marketplace, will be dependent on deal flow and how many agents that we have. But that allows us, because of the control that we have, because our average agent did 33 extra closings last year from our team generated business, it allows us to continue to make sure that you're on these training calls because they're required. And if you don't want to be on them, that's fine. You just can't work here. And so it allows us an opportunity to constantly be training our agents. And we've created this culture that we're just getting them better. And we don't lose agents. Our attrition rate is under 5%. And so because of that, they just constantly keep sharpening their saws. And so when we're talking about best practices of closings, we're talking about best practices on the initial call, building rapport, discovery, setting up the tour properly to set yourself up for success, foreshadowing your initial tour by saying, look, what you're looking for, many are. So there's not going to be a ton available, but when we find the right one, don't be afraid to pull the trigger. 80% of my clients purchase on the first tour. Foreshadowing, setting expectations. And so these training efforts that we do are continuously helping our agents become better and giving them more sales skills in the field and on those initial calls, so that they can become better closers, so they can become better sales professionals. And so because we have the control, we're able to make sure that you're listening. We're able to make sure that you're watching. Everything we do is recorded. It's on LearnDash. We can see who's watching and see who's not. And if you're not, then you're out. And so we've created the culture that, hey, it's just, yeah, I have 7-8 calls a month that I have to be on, but I'd rather be on 7 or 8 calls a month with lending partners, with best practices, and receiving 15 high quality referrals a month than not being on these calls and not receiving any referrals. And so, and it's just become ingrained in our culture because everyone understands it's for their betterment. So, I mean, look, training to me is so critical around ensuring that you have the right people in place. You can build systems and process, but if your people aren't trained well enough, then that's all for nothing. So the key element is consistent education and making sure everyone's on the same page of training and best practices.
Love that. And I didn't cover it in my article with Quicken, and one of the things why Quicken is winning market share and doing so well, but I did cover it in my interview with the RE Source. I'm going to put a link to that down below. It actually just posted yesterday, late last night. So check out the interview with Ryan Hills. But we talked about, I mean, that's one of Quicken's superpowers is how well they train and how well they manage their team and their ability to execute their processes. So let's do this. Let's save that for the, call it leadership and training, for the last 15 minutes of this call. I think it's a good opportunity to bring Brian Morley in. And here's what I want everybody watch this right now. You're a local mortgage professional, and my hope is listening to him. I saw one person comment, oh, it's not fair that realtors get referral fees and we can give referral fees and we can't. Guys, like, whatever the rules are, the rules are. We're going to play the game the way we can play it. And yeah, realtors do have an advantage, or they do have that ability. Lenders don't. But my hope is you're going to pull best practices from this. You're going to get ideas and strategies that help you refer to your agents more effectively, and your agents refer to you more effectively. And part of that is delivering an amazing advice experience.
But if we can real quick, that's not the basis of saying, hey, because I don't want to misconstrue this, because the model how we pay out referral fees and things like that, that's not the basis of the model. The basis of the model started from the fact that we want to put a trusted agent in front of our client because we know that they're going to do their part to help us close more business. That's the overall arching goal. The referral fees are secondary. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't partner up with somebody like myself in your local market to say, hey, I'm going to send you business. Will you take care of the clients I send you and offer a rewards program to them? Because to us, when we offer a rewards program, we're assisting them with closing costs and prepaid fees and interest rate buy downs or whatever they want to utilize our credits for. And we're giving up a third of our livelihood by doing that. And the key is to find partners that will ensure that not only when you send them a referral that they're trusted, but think about how many people would come to you in exchange if that partner would open up their mind for 1 minute and understand that more business is better than, like, to me, it was never about, I never wanted to make as much money as possible on a file. I just wanted to create an assembly line of business. And I knew that we would have to do our part to give up some of that in terms of revenue. But I also knew that the consumer would win. And when the consumer wins, they go back to the originating party, meaning you, the lender, and saying, that was amazing. Here's my uncle, here's my aunt. And they tell their friends that not only did they have a great experience, but they had these rewards waiting for them at the table. Like, that's about you as a lender thinking out of the box and seeing who you can partner with to try to institute new programs and products to better fit your clients out there in the marketplace. So the referral thing doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just being creative. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents on that.
Love the clarification and love that. Brian, anything you want to say before you come in as a lender, share a couple of case studies that would help the lender and the realtor better serve a family together?
Yeah, before we get to that, it's just, Jason, what you're saying is really resonating with me. And it's funny how a lot of what you do is so applicable to what we do. And I'm just looking at some of the notes I've been scribbling down, assembly line, name recognition, experience. I mean, that's exactly what we do, creating that experience that's memorable. We have a tagline at Fulton, changing lives for the better. And I think that could apply to what you do and what we do. And it's just so interesting when you put it, if you're very macro instead of micro, it's, we do the same thing. We're serving families. And it's just about how we do it. So I love some of what you said. I've taken a lot of notes here.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, Dave, what I'd love to do is share my screen here. Let's get it up here.
And as you're sharing your screen, he's going to pull up a total cost analysis. What's the story here? Like, what was the family's?
Yeah, what I've seen a lot now, I've been at it for about 15 years. So starting to see a lot more of the move up buyers, a lot of, aging housing stock. I'm primarily in the Baltimore and DC marketplaces. So like a lot of other places, there's a lack of inventory. So really, having a lot of conversations with people about that next house. How do we get there? So I pulled the name of these buyers out of it, but this is a customer I worked with. I did their first loan about 7 or 8 years ago. They have a $600,000 house in Howard County, Maryland, 4% interest rate. So obviously if they were to stay, we'd be able to do much better for them. They're contemplating whether or not they want to stay in their house, do a pretty significant renovation, or if they want to buy that next house, that kind of shinier, newer car. And, like anyone, I could throw the numbers at them and let them figure it out. But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to paint a picture of, well, how does this factor into your life plan and life goals? And what I got from the conversation was either the renovation or the next house is kind of the house for a significant period of time. And given the rate environment, it's probably the mortgage that they're going to be in for a significant period of time. So what I really wanted to focus on with these particular clients is, what is their net worth? What would their, not just rate, payment, cash to close, because you can do that in a spreadsheet, but what I really focused on here is their net worth. What does it look like if they take the money, refinance their house and do the renovation, or what does it look like hold on to their money and invest that money at a at a modest rate? And similar to what Jason's talking about, building those relationships, as lenders, we've got to look for all of those opportunities. So what's better than to be able to take this and send them to a financial advisor? giving a referral instead of taking a referral. You know, what's better than taking this client who's coming to me and talking about potentially refinancing, renovating, and also buying, giving that referral to a realtor. So, you know, in this case, these particular buyers are heavy on the buy side because they saw what the net worth would be and how, even though they'd be significantly increasing their purchase price, or the value of their home, I should say, in the long run, they're creating more value and more equity for themselves.
So are you in the highlight feature? Can you highlight a few things? I want to just showcase a few things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, one of the things that I really highlighted.
Time out, Brian, real quick, guys. I put a link to Brian's move up analysis in chat, whether you're watching this
great.
or Zoom. So if you click on that link, one, you'll be able to follow along. Like when Brian highlights it, it will change on your end. So anyways, Brian, go ahead and I want you to highlight the key concept, because here, this is a family that's like, hey, stay in your current home. You could lower your monthly payment, or you could move up, get your dream home, get your lifestyle, have more wealth in 15 years, and improve your liquidity. So like they're getting it all. They're getting lifestyle, they're getting liquidity, and they're getting net worth.
Yeah, so this is what really kind of started the conversation, you know, the payment. You know, what's my payment? What's my payment? What's my payment? And that's what the customer and the consumer goes to right away. Whoa, I can't really almost double my payment for this house. And I said, okay, well, let's have a conversation around that. And let's talk about wealth and future growth. And that's where I'm really driving them to this net worth in 15 years chart on the bottom right. And, you know, showing what it's like. Okay, yeah, your payment's going to be a little higher, but we're taking all of that equity that you have from selling your house, investing it at a modest rate of return, 4%. And we can tweak that with whatever, you know, we want you to do, and showing what your net worth is in 15 years. And we can customize it. These particular individuals were planning on staying in the house for a significant period of time. So I thought it was a 15-year duration was a good period of time. So I showed them that, you know, if you compare your net worth, if you do your renovation to if you buy, your wealth increases by $500,000. And they were like, wait a minute, how does that math work? And I walked them through it a little more through this. And it was really eye-opening to them that they realized that payment is not the main driver of what they need to do. Another one I'd love to share real quick with you is, you know, again, this move-up buyer seems to be, you know, what I'm seeing a lot lately. So, and in the market we're in, we're seeing a lot of non-contingent. Well, you have to be non-contingent to be competitive. And, you know, that's what Jason was talking about earlier. So here's an example. Someone who has a home, wants to buy a jumbo home, making a minimal down payment, and then they sell their house. So they said, Brian, well, what do we do when we sell the house? How do we get in a better spot? So I said, okay, we've got two options. The first is, you know, we're selling, you know, I'm sketching out first what the purchase strategy looks like. We're going to put 5% down, and we walk through how to come up with those money, you know, gifts, you know, maybe a short-term 401k loan, savings, whatever the case may be. And then, okay, once you sell your house, what's the next step? You know, two things. One, we're going to take the $300,000 in equity. We're going to recast your loan. You're going to go from 760 to 460. And your payment's going to go down. And that, I think, is the simple way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, okay, let's keep the higher loan amount, but instead let's invest that savings. And what does that do to your net worth? What is the result of taking that $300,000 and putting it in play? So again, if we look at that net worth tool again, you'll see it's a pretty significant savings. It's pretty significant increase in wealth as a result of that. You know, your $300,000 in 15 years at 4% compounding interest is $546,000. So you're in a better position by holding on to that money and managing wealth. You're in a better position. So it just seems this has been a key thing that I'm seeing with a lot of my clients lately. A lot of people are taking that next house or that move up. And I want to get away, and I have been getting away from the concept of rate, payment, cash to close. Anyone can do that. I'm trying to talk in more of a larger scale of what does this mean for you and your family, and how does it align with your long-term wealth strategies?
Love that. Jason, any comments or questions on what you're seeing here?
I love it. I mean, it's just so easy to follow, and it makes all the sense in the world. I love how there's also disclosure too, like 4% appreciate, the base at 4% appreciation within your tax bracket. So you're specifically talking to them. I just think this is so great for people to look at. I don't know. I'm just blown away by it. It's awesome.
Love it. So guys, I also just put a link. I interviewed Andrew Stotterborn recently, and I'm going to be doing another interview where he's saying, hey, what if you moved up or bought a home and got a rental? So you could take that you could add a fourth strategy and say, hey, rather than put all that money in the bank, what if you took some of that money and bought another home, bought a rental? And so guys, I just put a link here, but here's what I want to do. By the way, Brian, anything else you want to show on this before we just riffed on this real quick?
No, this is I hit kind of the key topics.
Okay. So but here's the deal, guys. Think about this. Whether it's the realtor referring the loan officer, let's just play that out, and the loan officer is delivering value beyond the transaction in a local, personal way. They're helping that family make a better decision with more clarity and more confidence. That creates better conversion, that creates better experience, that creates clients for life. Now, the other way around, when you give a referral to an agent, now Jason has a very, I guess, bold way of delivering value beyond the transaction where he's investing, but it's more to it than that. But here's what I think everybody needs to think about is how do we, one, make really quality handoffs that are super well thought out, speed to lead, good positioning, what each partner says matters, what the realtor says when they refer about the lender matters, what the lender says about the realtor matters. And you're offering something more than a transaction, going beyond the transaction. So let's just riff on that, guys, for like 5 minutes and then close out with leadership and management. Jason, why don't you go first on just how you think that all ties together?
As far as what side of that, like in terms of how it all comes together, in terms of the distribution, the handoff, the seamlessness, and everything else. I mean, look, it's everything, because that's where the relationship comes into play. And I want to take that further right now, because I've been saying this for years, because I've seen it coming, because I'm fortunate enough to be behind the scenes with a lot of these groups. The average real estate agent will find themselves in a much harder position as the next several years come down the pipe, because it is going to be increasingly more difficult to get to the consumer. Because from search to lender, the consumer is going online first, or they're getting pre-qualified first. Very rarely are they coming to an agent first. And that's a complete 180 from where it was even only 15 years ago. 15 years ago, you find an agent, they would refer you to a lender, and then they would send you properties, and then you'd go look. It's completely different now. We are actually last. And when you become last, or we're, not for everybody, but for most people, but when you become in that situation, realtors have to now start thinking out of the box. They have to think, what am I going to do to continue my business strategy? Because it's just hard to get to. I mean, you look at companies like Zillow and Realtor.com, in a lot of markets across the country, you can't even buy leads from them. Open houses are becoming harder to get the consumer to go to, because they can see the home before they even enter the open house. They don't need to go in anymore. And so the agent has to find ways to partner with lenders and people, like a lot of the people that are on this call. But they have to be able, and I would advise anyone listening, any agent that comes to you and says, hey, I'd love an opportunity to work with you, it's not just about reciprocation. To me, that's completely secondary. It's about strategy. Okay, let's talk about that. Tell me your strategy. How are you going to best serve my client? What are the best practices for me to send you referrals? What are the best practices that you're going to institute? Do you have a platform? Because a handshake and a smile is not good enough anymore. Are you going to offer rewards program to my consumer? Like, we have to make sure, like I'm speaking from the lender side, we have to make sure that agents are coming to the table with something more than just themselves, because there's more out there. There's better out there. And you guys are now in control where you didn't used to be in control. I mean, for years I was saying, and you know, at my peak, when I was in the field selling, I set an Arizona state record. I did 144 million in personal sales in 2017. And I would always find myself wondering, why do these lenders sponsor these open houses? Like, no buyers ever come from that. Well, they sponsor it because they wanted to appease their agent, but to give up $2,000 in food and entertainment or whatever for something that's not going to come back, or 50% of your ad spend on Zillow, we have to start thinking, who are we going to invest in that we know is sharp, that's going to close, and we can create long-term strategy around? And the individual agent is very challenging to do that. You have to do it with leadership. You have to do it with the points of contact, the people that run teams that can control more than just one individual. And so I would challenge everybody on this call to start thinking out of the box of what the strategy is when it comes to creating these real estate relationships. Because the individual agent nowadays they can't offer what they once could, the majority of them. And instead of you guys constantly spinning your wheels, spending money on support, so many times I find even agents that are doing a decent amount of business, they just can't reciprocate that in return. That just means you're targeting the wrong audience. And so think about who you do want to target that you can have strategy sessions around on how you both are going to grow your businesses together.
Love everything you said. Brian, anything you want to add on to that, or any questions you have for Jason?
No, I mean, I would add on, in my career, you know, just the numbers validate what Jason's saying. When I look at the percentage of, I've tracked everything for the last 12 years from a referral perspective, and the percentage, and part of it's the growth of my my business and my client base, but the percentage of business originating with realtors has decreased significantly, and it's because of everything that Jason said. And as a result, what I've really looked to do is, and I think it's so important now, is build that customer for life strategy, build the experience transactionally where they are comfortable. My team recently got an email, a young man we've helped before is buying another house, and he's buying it with his fiance, and he said, he replied to an email, he said, see, this is why I said that we would use Brian Morley and his team. There's no one better than this. And just getting a testimonial like that is how you're creating that constant flow of business. And well, I do think that the retail realtor is still an important piece of the puzzle. It's Jason is spot on. They're no longer the main dominator in the market due to technology, due to everything. It's you have to diversify what you're looking at.
No question.
Consumer habits, how consumers do life, how consumers buy houses has changed. I hope everybody heard what Brian said, guys. And this is a guy who's going to do 170 million this year, and he knows every lead by source. Exactly what I talked about in that Quicken article. He's delivering a total cost analysis to every family, so he's delivering value beyond the transaction. One of my favorite interviews of 2020, Brian, was the interview I did of you about 3 or 4 weeks ago after you had shopped 6 lenders. So guys, there'll be a link down below, but if you want to hear Brian describe his experience, like after shopping 6 of his competitors, some were national platforms, some were local platforms. One of them was a big online, you know, big brand lender. And guys, it's just so easy to deliver value beyond the experience.
Well, and Dave, if I may comment on that, because you know, another critical piece is about conversion in itself. And regardless of what an agent may promise you in exchange for opportunity with you, if they can't deliver, then it's all for nothing. And I want to, you know, we talked about this on our last interview, Dave. From the referrals we receive from our lending partners, if we close them, our national average was 84%. So that means that if they were closable, 84% of the time it closed with the lender that referred us that opportunity. And when you think about that on a scalability, if you're sending referrals out to somebody that's even at 50, 60%, you're losing 1/4 of those opportunities because they simply didn't have either the right systems, training, or methodology to close business for you. And so we have to get our mindset away from just thinking of it's because the mindset is constant reciprocation. What can you give me back? What can you give me back? And I'm telling you, it's not ever what it appears that it will be, because they can't deliver. The majority of them cannot deliver. Not everyone, but the majority cannot. The key element is making sure that they're servicing your client so you can build your own personal book and portfolio of referrals by making sure that they are working with the best and have the great experience. Think about those numbers, where if it's you have somebody that can close at 85% or somebody that's closing half of what you send them, well, that's a lot. So think about that. It's not about reciprocation. It's about ability.
Fair enough. So we got 10 minutes left. Let's wrap up around leadership and management. And, you know, there are certain standards that you have. And Brian, I know there's certain standards you have because you've done a great job of bringing on a new loan officer, Pat Casey. And because you've trained him well and you're following up, I mean, he's just having incredible success. But Jason, you are the main guy here. So what are your leadership principles and what are your management strategies so that you can scale the platform? I mean, to do 300 and some odd families in a single month and to service these lenders, you must be doing some pretty special things. So walk us through your leadership and management strategies.
Sure. Well, to us, it's all static. I mean, our back office consists of all the training and calendar of event series that you must attend. And every month we have training calls, and every month we have our team meeting. And then we have weekly coaching tips. And so for us, you can always access that information. You can go to the back office, all the trainings you want to watch, and then of course, attending the live trainings. So we're constantly communicating with all of our marketplaces.
What kind of technology are you using to, you know, manage your learning management system?
Yeah, right now it's LearnDash. So we do all the recordings. We institute LearnDash on there and make sure that people are, you know, watching the recordings. But those are live calls. Those are calls that we require our agents to be a part of because it's always changing. If we add a new partnership, there's an entire series based around that. We call it our partner resource guide. So you access the partner's resource guide. It tells you everything about the partnership. We put videos together for best practices to close them. And so you go through general referral agent training, but every time we add a new partner, if you're on that program, you have to pass their curriculum. So we put together a curriculum for every single partner that we have. And in order to successfully receive referrals, you have to pass that curriculum. And that helps because it really paints a picture of the difference between partner A and partner B and partner C. The other side truly to me is leadership, you know, making sure that you have the right marketplace leaders to drive the message, leaders that appreciate the additional opportunities you've provided, but also send that culture message down to all of our agents and understanding that, guys, there's nowhere else that you can have value like this, you know, drinking our Kool-Aid and understanding like from training to technology to opportunity, this is where it's at. But we have high standards for you. And if you're not going to achieve those high standards, then you just unfortunately can't work here. So we're just constantly, and that's another important piece too, constantly restacking talent. You know, you always have your bottom 10%, constantly reshuffling them and reshuffling your talent pool. So you just get better and better at your closings. You get better and better at your ratios that you can turn to partners to and say, hey, look, our trending report in this market of the past 6 months is up 7%, 9%. You know, we're doing better. And also looking at the adverse too and saying, whoa, why are we down in this market? What is going on here? And so we use BI for everything. And so we know everyone's closing ratio. We know everyone's give back. We know everyone's, we know everything. We know the branch revenues. We know the referrals. We tier it by partnership. So we have all these systems dialed in, but I'll tell you, I mean, it took a long time. But now you just look at reporting and you just make sure that everyone's on the same page. So, but leadership is so important. I mean, a bad leader has screwed up multiple markets for me. And that's why for us, we won't go into a market unless I'm dead set that I have the right leader to lead the charge in this marketplace. And whether it be a marketplace that you can't feel in touch because it's out of your local market, even in your local markets, like when you hire a sales director, when you hire a COO, they have to see your vision. You know, they have to be able to put in the work to grow your vision to where it needs to be. And that's tough sometimes because sometimes people are so set in their ways, but you know, training and development is just, it's so important.
So I hope everybody heard leadership is everything, creating training content, having regular training, holding people accountable. Sometimes you need to move people in and out of your platform if they're not going to follow your process. And then I know you're doing also leadership outside, like you've contracted with American Dream so that you could create content that creates leadership for both families, for lenders, and to build your folks. So what are you doing from a leadership standpoint and content creation? You know, what are you doing with the American Dream team right now?
Yeah, so that's, I just get, I was not very good at video content and creation and stuff like that. It was never my thing. I never had a plan to want to be on HGTV or Bravo or anything like that. That was never my goal. And so I always stayed away from that. I focused on building the business. And, but you have to have it to a sense. And that's why instead of me going out and trying to build it myself, we partnered with the American Dream on a national level to create more brand awareness, to create the spotlight for my partners, and to make sure that they understand that I want to be more than just somebody that receives your referrals. I want to be somebody that's appreciative and can put you in a spotlight as well. And so with the American Dream, that's what we're doing. We're going city to city, and we're going to discuss and bring in a lot of our partners in these episodes and really let the country know that from a B2B perspective, that if you need boots on the ground real estate services, that we do it better than anybody. And we're boutique, and we again, going back to training and developing and our systems and technology, we do it better than anybody. And we want the world to know that because we want to expand our markets. You know, we want to go into new markets, and we want to continue to add more talent in the areas in which we do service. So I believe that the American Dream will serve as a platform for that and some of the other things that we're doing as well. And so, and that's my job, Dave. My job is to find great partnerships, maintain great partnerships, and up the level of what we have with them, and make sure that the company continues to scale in an efficient way.
Love it, guys. Did you hear that? Video, and whether it's training your team within your platform, he's using video and technology to train, or whether that's growing your brand and building your audience, he's using video. And so make sure you follow him on all social channels. LinkedIn, we put a link in chat, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The man is doing a lot of the things right. Brian, any questions you have, you know, from a leadership and management standpoint before we wrap this up?
No, I loved what he said. I took one takeaway. We know everything, and it speaks. You know, Jason said that, and it speaks to knowing what you do, no matter what industry you're in, and so much so with mortgage and real estate, there are so many numbers and so many metrics around it. And if you don't know your own numbers or your team's numbers, how are you going to be successful? So we know everything is my main takeaway today, to make sure that whether you're a realtor, a lender, or whatever the case may be, know your business, know what your numbers are, and embrace the successful stuff and look to recreate that.
Yeah, that was a big takeaway. And then another big takeaway, just listening to both of you, is you're both delivering tangible value beyond the transaction. You are not defining yourself by your rate or your price or your, you know, call it your product. It's the value you're creating outside of the transaction. And some of it is just because I know you, Brian, using a total cost analysis, that's a service, but it's also a sales strategy. And then Jason, I know I've interviewed you. You've got lots of marketing touch points and a lot of value that you create. And you're even helping the family manage the wealth afterwards. It's good sales and marketing strategy, but it's also a service. So you're turning sales and marketing into a service, not a, hey, I'm staying top of mind with a newsletter, with a recipe, with things that aren't tangible value, delivering value outside of the transaction. So guys, we are at the top of the hour. This will not be the last time I interview Jason Mitchell. If you have questions for him, I think you said, Jason, the best way is to connect with you on LinkedIn and message you. Is that still right?
Or email. It's jason@jasonmitchellgroup.com. That works too. But yeah, LinkedIn's great. Instagram, and then just email.
Cool. So reach out to him. He's a good dude. I think there's a lot can be learned from him. And I also think that we're going to see Mortgage Coach, you know, big platforms that have consumer direct strategies wanting to partner with Jason. I see that as a trend where top leaders, it's like, hey, you have your local realtors and you may refer to them, but sometimes you have a lead that you think could be better served. And so I think we're going to see a lot of top producing mortgage leaders partner with you and people like you. So they've got a national strategy. And then I think, of course, I think we all need to ask, whether you're a realtor or loan officer watching this, how are you helping that family build wealth with real estate beyond the transaction? That is the key. If you got value from today's call, give it a like. If you loved it, give it a love. If you have more questions or takeaways, put them in comments down below. Jason, any closing thoughts for the Mortgage Coach audience?
No, I love it. And I love that analysis sheet I looked at that Brian went over. I mean, I just think it's so high level. So that was amazing. And just everybody out there, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this and watching. And Dave, thank you for giving us a platform here to do so. I really appreciate that.
Right on. Thank you, brother. And then Brian Morley, thank you for jumping in as a leader in the Mortgage Coach community. Any final thoughts you have for any loan officers watching today's call?
No, just keep plugging along and keep doing your thing.
Right on, everybody. Take care. This call is a wrap. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.